Hi, everybody. My name is Joseph Patridge. I'm the director of the Worth Institute for Austrian and Central European Studies here at the University of Alberta. And on behalf of the Institute and the European Union Center of Excellence, I would like to welcome you to this evening's lecture by our distinguished visitor from Slovakia, Dr. Iveta Radičová of the Comenius University in Bratislava. Before I invite Dr. Radičová to the podium, please allow me to introduce the Vice Provost Academic of the University of Alberta, Dr. Roger Epp, to make some introductory comments. Dr. Epp.
Thanks, Joseph. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm just new in my job, and one of the great things I'm finding out that I get to do in my job is to be present at some important university events. And I would count this one of them. I'm a political science by training. And at least since Plato, those of us who work in the academy have been fascinated by those who can be both academics, who work in the world of ideas, maybe at a slight remove, but who can also then be political actors and work in that world where ideas need to make sense to a whole different set of people who don't operate by the same peer review standards maybe we do here from time to time. So it's a great treat. I'm looking forward to this. A chance to hear someone who in fact has done both of those things and continues to do both of those things. And I'm speaking, of course, of Professor Radičová. So I'm not going to do that introduction, but it is my pleasure on behalf of the university to welcome her here. Welcome. And to welcome here all of you who, especially those of you who don't spend every day on this campus and who are here as members of the community. This is exactly what the university is for, and we're glad that you are also here. So congratulations, Joseph, on this event. I know that your distinguished visitor this week has made a real impact on Alberta already, and we look forward to this talk as well.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Epp. For those of you who don't know, the Worth Institute was established in 1998. Over the years, the governments of 7 Central European countries have officially recognized the Institute's activities and supported these activities in various ways. The countries associated with the Worth Institute are Austria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Slovenia, and the home of today's speaker, Slovakia. The Worth Institute has a national mandate here in Canada to organize cultural and educational events to help Canadians better understand the peoples and histories of these countries. For example, each year the Institute hosts doctoral researchers from many of these lands. They live in Edmonton for a year working on their dissertations. You will meet one of these doctoral researchers, Mr. Stanislav Štěpánek of the Charles University in Prague, Czech Republic, tonight when he introduces our speaker, Dr. Radičová. Since shortly after its inception, the Worth Institute has benefited from the generous support of the Edmonton chapter of the Czechoslovak Society for Arts and Sciences. I am pleased to have this public opportunity to acknowledge the recent generous donation of $36,000 by the Society, represented here by their longstanding chapter president, Dr. Pavel Yellen. Thank you very much. This donation continues the organization's support of the Czech Doctoral Research Fellowship Program represented tonight by Mr. Štěpánek. Last year, with the support of the Slovakian Embassy in Ottawa, the Worth Institute sponsored a display of photographs illustrating the various foreign aid projects funded by Slovakia. This year, in addition to Dr. Radičová's lecture, the Institute will be co-sponsoring an exhibition of contemporary Slovakian art in the Fab Gallery here on campus. The exhibition is entitled Face to Face, Works on Paper from Slovakia. It will open on June 17th and run through July 12th. Organized on the Edmonton side by Dr. Petr Andruš of the Masakovsky Alberta Health Institute, a native of Slovakia, The exhibition will feature works by 18 Slovakian artists affiliated with the Academy of Arts in Banska Bystrica. For more information about the exhibition and its themes, please see the information on the list of the Worth Institute summer events, which we have available here. We at the Worth Institute look forward to organizing, co-sponsoring, and contributing to further events featuring Slovakia. As the great-grandson of a peasant couple who lived up in the mountains where the lightning still flashes over what is now the Slovak Republic, I feel a personal interest in this area. I've invited this year's Czech doctoral research scholar, Dr. Stanislav Štěpánek, and Mr. Stanislav Štěpánek, not doctor yet, to introduce today's speaker. Together with the Institute's executive manager, Ms. Sylvia Adam-Ross, Mr. Štěpánek has worked to organize Dr. Radičová's visit, and I'd like to thank both of them for all of their work. It was Mr. Štěpánek's idea to invite Dr. Radičová, a politician and intellectual he respects highly, to the University of Alberta. Mr. Štěpánek is a doctoral student at the Charles University in Prague and a specialist in Czech language education. He is also an experienced elementary and secondary school teacher. Today, he'll say a few words about our esteemed guest. So, Mr. Štěpánek.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I feel greatly honored to have the opportunity to introduce Professor Iveta Radičová. Professor Radičová has devoted most of her professional career to social and family policies. She received her master's degree in sociology from Comenius University in Bratislava and her PhD from the Slovak Academy of Sciences. In 1990, she spent 1 year as a postdoctoral student at Oxford University. In 1992, she founded the non-profit Social Policy Analysis Center, which she headed until being appointed director of the Slovak Academy of Sciences Institute of Sociology in 2005. In the same year, she was awarded the title of professor by the Faculty of Philosophy of Comenius University. She is a member of several renowned international academic societies and associations. In 2005, she accepted the offer to serve as the Minister of Labour, Social Affairs and Family, and after the 2006 elections, she became a Member of Parliament. In 2009, Professor Radičová ran for president and ended up second, becoming the first woman in Slovakia to ever make it into the second round of a presidential election. After the parliamentary election in 2010, she was installed as Slovakia's first female prime minister and served in this position until 2012. Since then, she has been teaching at Comenius University and Pan-European University in Bratislava and lecturing at other universities all around the world. In relation to contemporary politics, she defines her role as a strong civic voice from the outside and is the most popular non-politician among Slovak politicians. We will see if or when this changes, as late Václav Havel said that she will become president one day. Ethics in politics, honesty, determination of character, humility and decency. These are her fundamental values, otherwise so rarely seen in today's politics. She does not approve of politics based on creating a picture of the enemy, populist rhetoric, and politics based on polarizing the society. Democracy, according to Professor Radičová, is not the tyranny of the majority, but the protection of the minority. She does not believe dogmatic truths and loves the restlessness of understanding. Now, for the first time, she has come to Canada. Please welcome Professor Iveta Radičová.
Thank you. Oh, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank many times for this opportunity and very kind invitation and such a possibility to meet with you and discuss with you and listen to your statements, your understanding of the word, because the only way to the truth is through dialogue, and I believe in dialogue. believe me that what I used as a main instrument is, first of all, to listen, and only then to talk. Today I have opposite position, so I have to start with talking, speaking, and then I hope I have a chance more to listen to your reactions. I have this technology, so if something have happened, it's not my fault, yes? I do my best. What to say as an introduction? Maybe I will start with this way. European Union has received Nobel Prize. And there were many jokes around this, because EU received this in the time inside really deep, widespread crisis. So for what Nobel Prize? All around Europe, there are protests on the squares, in the streets, dissatisfied citizens. Many political scientists has written their books about dissatisfied citizen, end of liberal democracy, deficit of democracy, etc., etc. So why Nobel Prize? For what? Habermas, very well-known philosopher, reacted on this and said, sorry, at least for 3 reasons. First, peace. We had not to forget that the major reason for unification of European countries was the experience of Second World War and trying to keep the peace on this continent. And it's true that with very hard and huge effort, we try to keep the peace also among Balkanian states, and I hope we will have a chance to keep the peace at our border with Ukraine. Second reason is democracy. It's clear that you cannot have economic growth and be successful if you have a democratic regime. Democracy is first condition for success. Consolidated democracy, guarantee of human rights, and mainly participation of citizens on the governance. So we are trying to prepare our countries to behave as democratic countries, as acting societies with participative citizenship. And last but not least, because of welfare states. Human dignity is the main aim of all our efforts, to guarantee human dignity to everybody. And how to do it? How to use sources, how to have sources to guarantee human dignity. How to build social states. There are critics that because of welfare and social state, we have crisis because it's too expensive. Opposite voices are, we can survive through the crisis because we have welfare states. Otherwise, majority of people are in poverty and problems. These 3 pluses are also minuses of Europe and challenges for the future. About whom I am talking. If I remember it correctly, 150 years ago, there were altogether 2 billion inhabitants all around the world. At present, it's 7 billion. Unbelievable increase of population. Demographic boom in all the world. And what is important is that we are divided. there are new social inequalities. One based on concentration of the wealth in 1% of all this population all around the world. And another is based on so-called information revolution. The main wealth and power is in the hands of those who have information. I usually compare it that if the last century was the century of Ford and industrial revolution, this century is the century of Bill Gates and informative revolution. World is globalized. If something have happened in Canada, we feel consequences. If something have happened in Europe, you feel consequences. When there was a bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers, in small Slovakia, 5.5 million of inhabitants, we have immediately lost 150,000 jobs. Such is the world interconnected at present. So we cannot think about our local problems only, because our local problems are global problems and opposite. Europe, old continent with unprecedented history, culture, civilization, altogether 700 million inhabitants. European Union, altogether 28 states and 500 million inhabitants. Inside European Union, there is a Eurozone. It means states with common currency, euro, altogether 18, and it is 330 million inhabitants. Yes, now you know. It's equal to the number of inhabitants of United States of America, together 50 states. 18 states of Eurozone is equal to 50 states of United States of America. And you can compare, if you wish, also GDP. Yes, states are producing 19% of overall GDP in the world, Eurozone the same. So compatible parts of the world. But what is special for European Union? I am sure you know how this supranational identity is built. It's built on triangle of competences. Legislative body and responsible for legislation is European Parliament. Altogether 751 deputies voted in all 28 countries. Now we will have elections in May. Executive body is the Council of Europe, created from the ministries of each state. Depends on the issue which is on the table. And the meetings are regular at the summits and meetings of ministers. And each 6 months, one country is has a presidential position for whole executive policy of EU. And third is European Commission, which is administrative institution, nothing more. No competencies neither in execution nor in legislation. During the crisis was created fourth very important subject, and this subject is European Council, created from the heads of the state, responsible for all conceptual strategic decisions and treaties. European Union is not federation. European Union is agreement of all states based on agreed treaty. Complicated, but only way how to do it, because of common will of national and supranational identity. If we want to have common decision, the only way is to promote it at home, through our national parliaments, through our national governments. Therefore, without agreement of national parliaments, there is no chance to find agreement of EU issues at so-called Brussels. In other words, Brussels is equal to the heads of national states, and they are responsible. Sure, sometimes it's very comfortable to use the sentence, Brussels decided, we have nothing together, sorry, we only have to implement it. It's not truth. Responsible are prime ministers and presidents of the states. Brussels is not empty entity. Brussels is equal to the decision-making process of national governments and national parliaments. Therefore, the crisis we are facing is resulted from the national politics. From 28 states altogether, 23 are not fulfilling our common treaty based in Maastricht agreement. And it was based that, come on, you have had very responsible politics. Deficit not higher than 3%, debt not higher than 60%. From these 28 states, 23 didn't fulfill this aim, didn't behave according to the agreed treaty. 23 states in problems, in deep problems, with very high deficit, very high debt, and in crisis, with the consequence to ordinary people because of very high unemployment rates. So, what have happened? Now, third technology, sorry, I will try. Yes, these have happened. Due to the crisis and not responsible behavior of national governments, we have lost 2,000 billion euro. We cannot imagine such a sum, me also not, but it's truth. It's equal to whole GDP of France, or 11% of Europe's cumulative debt. 23 million people lost their jobs. And what is more dangerous, twice high number of young people. This is the crucial and major problem of present Europe. Protests in Bratislava against the situation. Yes, we are still in shock, and deep shock. We need, and we put together, 4.6 trillion euro over this period, 37% of GDP, EU GDP. We are still facing limited overall economic demand. There is still crisis on non-financial firms and institutions, corporations. There is increased household debt. Level of the debt, according to GDP, increased from 60 at present to 91. It's still higher and higher. It's written 80. Today, it's 91%. And this is interconnected with the change in the structure of our economy. If in 1995, 2/3 of whole economy was based on services, at present 3/4. Come on, 1/4 of productive economy cannot cover 3/4 of services. If I say services, I have in my mind consultancy, financing, financial corporations, advocacy, and all these services around real economic production and productivity. So, job creation was driven by so-called third sector services in comparison with primary and secondary sectors when we lost 10 million jobs. Protests in London. Yes, crucial problem. You cannot be happy. You cannot guarantee, as I have mentioned, human dignity if you haven't a job, if you have an income from the job. So the major problem is really employment, and adequate employment to adequate education and qualification. There is a change of technologies. I have mentioned we are in informative societies. So we need more qualified people than it was before, and less amount of people. Many professions not exist at all at present. We do not need physical kind of doing some jobs because there are technologies, except human sources. Apart from the car sector, all ranges of industries, therefore, has lost jobs. High-tech sector represented 5.5% of total employment, but about 8% of overall GDP of Europe. If we increase the potential in high-tech sector, then we can really increase capacity and employment rate. This is combined with other problems, and you know about them. Demographic changes, aging of population, it's true. We are longer at school because of higher qualification, so later in the productive age, and our elderly people, as I say in Slovak, Gott sei Dank, in German language, have a chance to live longer because of better health care and better conditions, but then we need more sources to cover their pensions, and this longer period they are among us. And we are happy, but we have to cover it. Protests in Roma. Oh, sorry. If I compare European Union and United States, then there is real gap, an increasing gap in income. 3/4 of this gap we can explain by lagging productivity. It's true. Labor productivity grew much more slowly in EU than in the States. In States, they are in better conditions and chances in investment to hardware, software, and communication equipment. Leading innovators are in States so-called young firms. If I say young, I mean that they started to functioning after the year 1975. And special feature of these new firms is that they have also their own research at the firm and own innovation programs. In Europe, this is really not the truth. If you want to start a new firm or business, you need in States 6 days. In average in Europe, 15, in Slovakia, 3 months. Depends. Very long time. It's very complicated. Patent, know-how, the major source of the wealth. In States, it cost $1,850. In Europe, you have to pay 35,000 euro. What does it mean? If I want to do something and have patent, I'll do it in States, not in Europe, because it's too expensive and too long to have it. What is maybe more dangerous is that the progress and employment is based on higher qualification, better education, but 60% of Europeans have low or no skills. 60%. So we lack 700,000 IT professionals. That's why so many people from abroad are traveling and working in Europe, because they have open space, as we have in our own qualified people. Protests against the Eurozone, and also the same at the Wall Street, at the same time, against the economic system. So, how to solve employment? Only through education. It's the only way. There is no other way. My analysis you have seen, and all the figures and trends show very precisely that the only way how to solve all these problems are based in education. 6 million of young Europeans drop out of school each year with, at best, a lower secondary education. We haven't jobs for lower secondary education, not at all. About 80 million people in EU have only low or basic skills. On another side, very low figures we have concerning university degree. If you do not mind, one example from Slovakia. In 1989, when we started with transition, we have had 5% of population with university education, 5. Today, 14 percentage. Still very low figure, but you cannot do it quickly. If you want to give quality education to the young people, you need at least 5-6 years at the university. So you cannot do it quickly. But we are not adequately prepared and educated. That's truth. If we compare it to the figures in Japan, 50%, in States, 40%. So we are really at a very low level. About 40% of consumers have used internet to purchase goods and services, but only 9 have done it so from another state. So we are doing it only at home. What is interesting, we were talking and discussing valuation of universities, where they are, if they are on the first 100 or first 500, what's the quality. We have measurements of quality of our education and students through PISA, and usually there is argument that, okay, invest more finances and money, and you will have better educated people. It's the shortage of finances. I have to say that it's not the truth. That if you compare the amount of money put to the education and PISA results, you will find immediately and very quickly that many countries with high spending have worse results than the countries with low spending. I'm sure that the quality of education is mainly based on the quality of lecturers. That's truth. Protests in Lisbon and Madrid. So reasons of crisis. The first step to solve the problem is to say the truth. I have a right to repeat it here, as I was the first who said the truth loudly, with strong criticism in that time. And I was not so happy that I was right. I would be more happy if I was mistaken, but sorry, I had the truth. One small example, if you do not mind. February 2010, Iceland. Team of economists all over the world, led by Nobel Prize economist Miškovov, have done analysis of financial system of Iceland, and the result was the best financial system in the world. If you want to be successful, use it. It was February. In May, there was default of Iceland, total collapse of whole financial sector and economy. So the question was, how can these people has written such analysis and offer us model in collapse? And the answer was, I remember the sentence of this economist, Mr. Miškovov. He said, in that time, I believe it is truth. Oh, come on. You can believe to the God and not to the financial sector and finances. Then I had a look, and you can guess who financed this analysis. Financial institutions. I know it's not complete interpretation of the result, but partly yes. So who did mistake? I think that 5 main institutions. First, rating agencies. Greece in February, AA+. Oh, surprising. In May, collapse. Eurostat, no figures, nothing, that there is real such a deep problem and crisis. European Commission, in their report, nothing, everything is going well. We can only continue. Bank sector, no information from central banks, no analysis that we have to do something with deficit and debts, otherwise there is the risk of collapse of major financial and bank institutions. And last but not least, politicians. Nobody can promise to you what politician is able to promise. To win elections and have a power. So, politicians, if the citizens allow them, use only 2 instruments to win. Promises and creation of enemies. So we have to fight against somebody or something. And doesn't matter if this enemy is real or not real. If there is no real enemy, we will create something. Roma, Hungarians, Chinas, doesn't matter. We will find something. So all these institutions are really responsible for where we are. And citizens on the streets have a right to ask us why we have to pay once more and once more, because of misbehavior of macroeconomic policy, because of mispriced risk, because of weak prudential politics and frameworks, and because of missing of structural reforms, because it's more comfortable only to promise and to do nothing than to really do deep and necessary reforms. All these mistakes were based on three major assumptions. First was markets became increasingly integrated with enormous cross-border bank lending, but supervision and regulation remained at the national level. It's like the fight of small fish with shark. You have no chance. Second assumption was European Central Bank, ECB, was explicitly in Lisbon Treaty not allowed to be a lender of last resort. Yet markets operated under the assumption that the authorities, governments, central banks, would be ready with a safety net if things went wrong. And third, perception that economies or banking systems were too big and too complex to fail underlay the idea that their liabilities had implicit guarantees. All these together really had drastic consequences. Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, same pictures on the street. So where we are? We were facing global recessions in 1975, then in 1982, then in 1991, and now in 2009. The first were because of oil crisis and Iran-Iraq war. Present crisis is very similar with some specifics. Much deeper decline, as it were before, unprecedented degree of macroeconomic policy expansion, much higher unemployment, and therefore very expensive welfare, very expensive social security system. There are several possibilities and features of recovery, like credit bunks, not credible and coordinate policy strategy, and really we have loss of competitiveness. So we need really reforms. Protests in Paris and Vienna. We did what we could. We can say that the crisis is solved? Not at all. Not at all. We have started with tightening of fiscal policy, recovery of bank sector. We put enormous amount of money to common fiscal instruments and mechanisms, but still debt is rising and we can expect really increased debt in many countries. One comment I need to say at this moment, debt alone is not a problem. Example, at the Second World War, the debt of Russia was 18%, and the debt of Great Britain was 240. Russia collapsed, Great Britain not, because of two reasons. First, the trust. If there is a trust towards the country, that the country behave responsible, then you have no problems to find financial sources and new loans. And interconnected with the trust is then the cost of the services for the debt. This is the major problem, the cost of the services of the loan. That's why Spain, with lower debt, like United States, have problems because of the cost of the services for the debt, and states not. It's the category of trust, which is the major economic category, and without trust, you have no chance to recover economy. So, yes, weak confidence. If there is a trust, if there is a confidence, we can survive and we can solve the problems of deficit and debts, but there is no confidence. Greece is in default 5th time during last 100 years. It's their style of economy. They used to, but now there is a difference because they have the new common euro currency. So it's not only the Greece problem, it's the problem of Eurozone. And with the consequence to all countries in Eurozone. That's why we had to solve the problem of the Greece. Need of fiscal consolidation, tight financial conditions, and slow, if any, implementation of reforms. So, Slovenia, Germany, Finland, same picture. Oh, sorry. So what about me? Me, I mean citizen. I hope that politics is about citizens. Should be. I think that we are facing 3 common trends. I call them college premium. It means the premium on wages of those with bachelor's degree. Markets are not prepared for bachelor's degrees. They are either paid, these people, like with secondary education or basic education, but they are not paid them as university education. Second trend is so-called, I call it, superstar effect. I have mentioned it, new social inequalities. It means disproportionate compensation of 1% of the income distribution, and it's all over the world. And third trend, hollowing out effect, hollowing out of the middle class as a result of skill-biased technological change. So we have really not stable middle class, and stable middle class and good position of middle class is the main pillar of the stability of the society. So we are facing all the time, each 10 years, the same picture: recessions, recovery, recession, recovery, and citizens have to pay for it and face and be part of new position of the society. Situation in Czech Republic and Hungary, absolutely the same. So, and what about politicians or policy changes? Yes, there is a need of more policy action. Without more policy action, we cannot solve the problem. Or we risk neo-Nazism, neo-fascism, extremists, and many other features like it was during the crisis in 1930. We have to really implement immediately medium-term fiscal consolidation plans, new monetary policy. We have to forget Bretton Woods system. We have to forget it. Resolve crisis without any delay, and we really need structural reforms. Pension, healthcare system, labor and product markets, housing sector, financial, and last but not least, major reform, and it is a reform in education. Greece. So, to conclude, how many times we have to face the same problems? How many times? We didn't learn nothing from the history. From the crisis we have already on the table and in our everyday lives. Same reasons during all the crises, same reasons for recovery. Not appropriate housing policy, credits to those who have no income, credit boom, bank loans. Financial market problems, markets without any regulations, conditions for business occupied by corruption, when we lost at least 30% of overall GDP, and already mentioned structure of economy and our education. So we know what we have to do. And it's only on enough courage to really do it. Yes, what is easier, especially for politicians, to solve the problem by increasing taxation or try to start with debt restructuring and ask citizens to pay it? To increase taxation is not popular at all. So that's why politicians try to find another way. How to do it? To be elected once more and to have a power. But this doesn't solve the problem at all. So either you citizens, I citizen, will give a chance to responsible politicians, or we will face Ponzi scheme. I am deeply sorry. So hopefully you will find a way how to put the power to the right hands. And I mean it in both possible explanations. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the interesting talk and thoughtful conclusion here. Now to lead the question and answer period, I'd like to introduce my colleague from the Department of Political Science, Professor Lori Thorlekson. She's the director of the European Union Center of Excellence, so she'll take over the MC responsibilities from here.
Thank you. Okay, we'd be pleased to take some questions, so put your hand up.
Okay. I'll go close to you.
Okay.
This distance is not good.
Thank you very much for a most interesting talk, and you certainly provoked some thoughts. Anecdotal evidence seems to suggest that, especially when observed from outside and also through contact with friends in Europe, that for every dollar or euro that the EU earns, a lot of it is chewed up in bureaucracy rather than in a productive return. Is that a problem in Europe? The second question I have is, especially here in Canada, we hear about the flight of capital of that 1% to tax havens, thereby causing people in the middle class to bear an excess amount of the share of the capital needs of an economy. Is that also a case in Europe?
Answered, and then next. Okay. I'm not so sure I know all the answers. So if you do not mind, only how I understand it, but maybe I am not right. So concerning bureaucracy, yes, you are right. Bureaucratic system of EU is really very complicated. More than 30,000 administrators. All the procedure from European sources and usage of so-called Euro funds is so complicated that some people rejected to use it because it's more administrative, it needs more administrative effort than reality of doing project. All this is true, but as it is in life, the coin have two sides. Each audit of Eurofunds opened the problem of corruption. That's why there is such deep control. That's why there is so many audits, because of spending the money and putting the money to private pockets, except of using them on real projects. So I understand we have to control the money because if it's visible that they are not spent for Roma in segregated settlement, but for somebody who bought a new car, then the people react that, come on, what the European Union is doing, what they are financing. They see only the result. In Slovakia, there are several cases. Imagine funds for so-called social enterprises to create the jobs for long-term unemployed. No one was unemployed, but the money was spent somehow. So bureaucracy should be good thing if it works towards good effect and precise usage, for example, of common budget. Another negative attribute of bureaucracy is if there is only artificial pressure on you to do artificial, not real steps and complications towards keeping and doing your normal job. I think it's combination. It's combination, so it's not black and white. If we are more responsible at home, there is no need for such bureaucracy at an EU level. But we are not. There was an economic World Forum in Davos, and there was absolute agreement of all economists all over the world that we have two major problems. And on the first place, they put corruption. And it's in all spheres. And we try to solve it through independent administrators, so there is not repetition of the precedents of false usage of our common sources. So I see such. I was also responsible for several EU projects, and I was angry what they asked me to do. But knowing inside procedures and what's going on with common money, I understood it to be open. And taxation. You know, I read several books of really very clever authors, and they has written that you have to be proud to pay taxes because through taxation you paid for the services for you. Okay, but if I pay and I see that it's not for services, that it's not for public interest, then I am really not proud to pay the taxes at all. Opposite, I try to find a way how not to pay new and new taxation. Europe is very different in this sense. Also concerning your concrete type of taxation. North part of Europe have no problem with this kind of taxation procedure. But they have experience that if they pay to the state, they really have received quality services. From preschool education through schools, through leisure time, to healthcare and to pensions. If you give this question in south of the Europe, Spain, Greece, Italy, Portuguese, the answer is forget it. Never. No. In this chaos and what's going on, each 6 months new government, forget it. No. I'm not so sure of the answer of Central and Eastern Europe because Estonia is totally different in comparison with Hungary. Two totally different countries. So to answer in one sentence about EU and their position, I think is absolutely impossible. Depends on the country, depends on their history, depends on the confidence and trust towards government. Then I see the hand totally at the top. But now here, sorry, microphone is here. Then, sorry.
I was so totally hopeful when you started because you gave a beautiful explanation how the European Union started. I was growing up in Holland at that time, and here comes some secret information. I got my Dutch citizenship back, so I'm very interested in hearing positive things about the European Union. So this question is biased, right? I may ask, you know, I'm now a Canadian citizen and I'm a Dutch citizen. And I grew up with the European Union, and my hopes were high, and the way you explained, even referring to Habermas, the philosopher, and how the European Union started, I felt, great, this has to happen. This has to go on. And then you started analyzing why we have a crisis. And I have a few questions, because I grew up in the old school that, yes, the North is different from the South, as you just explained, and also that each country is so different. And I just have a specific question. You mentioned a couple of times that education and maybe some other systems like social services, you had statistics, and it sounded like it's all the same. But the way I look at it, I think the educational systems are very different, and I still think that the individual countries have different problems. I love Belgium, but it almost disappeared. And you know that, so I can only think about this is a marriage between multiple partners, and you explained it was based on treatment, on various treaties, and maybe the agreement was completely not worked out. It was a love affair, but it was not worked out. is that one of the basic reasons that it is collapsing, that there was no systematic approach? How can all these different elements work together? How can they really come up with one policy, the benefit for all countries?
Whew. There were several waves of enlargement of European Union, and the major were after 75, when the dictatorship in Spain collapsed, and then further in 2004 for 8 post-communist countries. So it's very young, very young. If you imagine that 30 years ago there was a dictatorship in South Europe, a dictatorship in Central and Eastern Europe 25 years ago. So I think we have done a huge amount of effort to put it somehow together and to find common will. And that's why it's so complicated to find common solutions for states who are at a different level of democratization process. Concretely, in Germany, if there was problem and corruption scandal of Mr. Kohl as a prime minister, and so-called girl, read Angela Merkel, exchanged him, this was not the reason that CDU, as a major political party, collapsed. A new political party was created because there is experienced and standardized political scene. In post-communist countries, it's based on leadership and personalities. So political party exists only with the leader. If something have happened with the leader, there is end of political party, and immediately there is a new political party, a new. So without stability, without continuity, in other words, it's not based on programs and values, but mainly on personalities, sympathy, and emotions. So such differences in value system of political parties, EPP in EU is a cluster of really different right-oriented parties. The same is about socialists. Our so-called left-oriented party today is openly named by Prime Minister that it's pragmatic populism. Okay, something new, but okay, we have it. So each 10 years, there is creation of new political scene and new political parties which we have a real problems to qualify what kind of value systems and orientations and solutions they will offer us. In other words, we are voting personalities, and solutions we leave on them. And then we are very quickly surprised what they are doing. We didn't expect sometimes what they are doing. So to find really agreement and to sign treaty needs deep discussions and negotiation. Taxation. I was all the time against harmonization of direct taxation. And I will be all my life. If we have common currency, the only instrument I have to solve crisis is taxation. I have another. And if it's harmonized, I have no instrument. So I have to keep in my hands as national leader one instrument to cover the problems with crisis. But indirect, yes. because it's interconnected with free movement of goods and services and capital. Yes, sure. So there is agreement of harmonization of indirect taxation, but not direct. Further next step. And last but not least, yes, there are differences in system of universities, but our old-fashioned universities with history, some of them are at the top. I spent last year time once more at Oxford University. What we cannot have the same is 10 centuries of the history. Sorry. Yes, there is a difference. But what we can do is to open the door for all kind of new information databases and quality lectures. This we can do. So there is a way how to decrease the gap also in educational system, but this doesn't change the results that long time we were sleeping on the wavelengths of victory, and we lost the touch with the new challenges and modernization in the societies. That's the problem.